So you're a specialist from another country and you want to work in Australia and you've made it all the way through the process up until the point of receiving partial or substantial comparability from the relevant college. What are your next and final steps? We'll find out in this next and final video of the series. Hello there, I'm Dr. Anthony Llewellyn, the Career Doctor. If you're a specialist doctor from another country, congratulations on making it this far through the process. And also congratulations on making it to the last of my videos in this series as well. And thanks for watching, I mean that. Remember, if you're looking for more information or help, then I do have a free course on the specialist pathway, which contains all of these videos plus even more helpful and useful information about the process. Link in the description or here or here. And if you're wanting a personal hand through the process, then I do offer a range of coaching and other services to help you out. You might want to become one of my limited VIP clients. All links are in the description below. So, reviewing your decision from the college. How do I go about reviewing my decision from the college? So the first step in the final phase of the specialist pathway is to understand the decision made by the college. The college will determine that you are either partially comparable or substantially comparable or not comparable. If you're deemed partially comparable, then you will generally be required to work under supervision for 2 years or 24 months, and most likely have to sit some examinations, which will be the same or equivalent to the final exams of trainees for the college. The requirement to sit exams is pretty much the case for all partially comparable specialists, with one notable exception. The College of Physicians generally does not require candidates to sit examinations, even if they're found partially comparable. I understand that this is on the basis that in this college, the exams are held at the end of basic training, not at the end of advanced training. So if you're found partially comparable, you're assumed to be at least at the level of advanced trainee and therefore should not require exams. Now, if you're deemed substantially comparable, then you'll generally be required to work under supervision for 12 months. And according to the rules, you will not have to sit any examinations. Whether you're found partially or substantially comparable, there may be certain additional requirements of your supervised placement. You should check what these are. Finally, if you're found not comparable, then you are not eligible for this pathway. And if you want to know what some of your options might be if you're not happy with that decision, you can check the previous video in this series. Now, often the conditions you have are around the level of supervision or the type of experience you need. For example, in psychiatry, it is quite common for the college to request some additional time in, say, consultation liaison or child and adolescent psychiatry, as these are often gaps in programs from other countries. Oftentimes, the special requirements is something simple like completing a short course or a learning module from the college website, so that's not a real issue. At the very minimum, you'll need to demonstrate that you are working effectively via your supervisor reports, and there is normally some form of external assessment that you have to pass where someone from the college will review your work with you at your work site. In terms of what you will need to do to pass this final phase, it's very important that you understand that it's up to you to find a position. The college is not an employer and you're not being accepted into a training program. So the college does not organise positions for specialist IMGs. So you need to be aware of the conditions of your supervised placement and be active in seeking out employment for yourself. Will the college help you? In terms of whether the college might help you, as I said, the college will generally make it quite clear throughout this process that it's not their role to find you employment. However, depending on the college, they may offer you some level of support. For example, you may find suitable positions advertised by employers on the college website. And the college will likely also give you access to its learning management system so you can complete some training, for example, supervisor training. This most likely will require you to pay a fee to be some sort of member of the college. In terms of whether a medical recruitment company might be able to help you, at this stage, a medical recruitment company may be in a position to help you as you have a form of college endorsement. Most medical recruitment companies will be happy to put you on their list at this stage, but this doesn't necessarily mean that they will view you now as a good prospect and therefore worth putting resources into. They might just think that you might want to locum with them down the track when you are established as a specialist. In general, if you've obtained substantial comparability and are from one of the comparable countries, that's the United Kingdom, Republic of Ireland, Canada, or the US, a medical recruitment company will be more actively interested in you. But it does depend on the specialty that you're in. Most surgical specialties, as well as other procedural specialties such as ophthalmology, dermatology, cardiology, and gastroenterology, are generally difficult to place as they are more saturated in Australia. On the flip side, even if you're not from a comparable authority country, but have obtained partial comparability in, say, psychiatry or general practice, which are heavily in demand specialties here, a medical recruitment company might be able to help you out. In terms of what jobs you should target, whether you have partial comparability or substantial comparability, you need to know which sort of jobs to rule in or out. A quick and effective way of doing this is, if you're looking at jobs online, is to go to the selection criteria and see what it is mentioned about registration and specialist qualifications. Jobs that explicitly say you need to have registration already and require you to already have a fellowship are generally off limits. If you see reference to terms such as eligible for registration, fellowship with the college, or eligible for fellowship, or working towards fellowship as a trainee or overseas specialist, or anything like that, you can be pretty much sure that they are keen to receive applications from specialist international medical graduates. In terms of what jobs you should target if you have partial comparability, if you have partial comparability, you're best off targeting jobs at an advanced trainee or fellow level. And when I say fellow, I don't mean fellow of the college, I mean a training position that is usually open to doctors who've completed their training but have not started as consultants yet. So an extra training role or research role. At a pinch, you might also want to apply for any unaccredited positions, as these are also often roles that are used to augment the college trainee workforce for that specialty. In terms of what jobs you should target if you have substantial comparability, with substantial comparability, specialist IMGs can also try applying for advanced trainee and fellowship roles. But depending on the specialty that you are in, you'll also find that there are consultant opportunities also available, and these are definitely better jobs to get if you can. Most commonly, these will be referred to as staff specialist roles. So what are my key tips for gaining a job? Well, my key tips for gaining a job I've put into a bunch of other videos on this channel. I've done lots of videos about how to go about finding your first job in Australia. So I'm just going to touch on this topic briefly for now, with an emphasis on this particular category. So in general, the same things will apply whether you are a recently graduated IMG doctor or a specialist IMG. One of the most common reasons I find that clients may not be being called for an interview is that their resume or CV is out of shape. Please don't contact any employer until you've had someone who knows what they are doing review your resume. Too many times I find that doctors are submitting something that is too long, lacks clarity, and is in the wrong order to what the employers are expecting to receive. Think about it. This document represents you on a page until you get the chance to talk to a potential employer. The next problem is likely to be that you're just applying online and not seeking to use and or expand your existing network of connections to identify a job. Yes, most doctor jobs are formally advertised in Australia, but if you can get yourself in the inside running where the employer invites you to apply, then this is so much better for you. So think about whether you can visit certain target hospitals or attend high-yield conferences where other specialists in your field are present, or asking colleagues to connect you to others who may be able to influence your career here in Australia. Another problem I do see is inadequate English skills. If English is not your native language, then it's important to improve this as much as possible. If possible, reset your English language test to prove to employers that your English is superior by getting, say, an 8 out of 9 on the IELTS when just 7 is sufficient. This will really help you stand out. Accompanied with poor communication is poor interview performance. It can be really nerve-wracking sitting for a job interview, particularly if it's been some time. And it's different to the college interview. So consider getting some coaching and practice beforehand. It can make a massive difference for you. Finally, you might just have to accept that you are in a really competitive field and that jobs are simply hard to come by. If you've been at this process for a while, again, consider getting some advice and reconsidering if a career in Australia in your specialty is going to actually happen for you. How do you go about completing a specialist pathway requirements? So in terms of completing a specialist pathway requirements, it's important to know that most specialist IMGs who make it to the stage of gaining comparability and getting a job post do end up gaining specialist registration. However, it's not a fait accompli and you'll still need to be able to demonstrate competence. Overall, just under 94% of specialist IMGs do successfully complete this final step of the pathway, but the statistics do vary between certain colleges. For the years 2017 to 2020, for most colleges, you have a very good prospect of passing, close to 100%, regardless of whether you're found to either be substantially comparable or partially comparable, so long as you do obtain a job. However, as you can see here from this graphic, for 3 particular colleges, it's quite a bit tougher. The College of Surgeons has a 27% rate of not recommending specialists at the end of the pathway. The College of Anaesthetists has a 28% rate, and the College of Ophthalmologists has not recommended 48%, or close to half of all specialist IMGs over the last 4 years that we have data for. Unfortunately, we don't have breakdowns on substantially comparable versus partially comparable, but I suspect it's those in the latter, the partially comparable, who are most often not being recommended. As mentioned previously, there may be some specific courses or training or experiential requirements that you need to complete as part of your peer review period. Most substantially comparable doctors need to have a period of 12 months peer review with some form of external workplace-based assessment process. Here's an example table from the College of Psychiatrists that shows you what might happen, but it does vary from college to college. So at the start, you get a 3-month job orientation, and you have to show that that's been completed. At 2 months, you do a formative case-based discussion. Then there's a supervisor's report at 3 months, a summative case-based discussion. Then at 6 months, another summative case-based discussion. And you're meant to have completed some 360 feedback from that stage. And then there's a supervisor's report at 6 months as well. And then at 9 months, another summative case-based discussion, and a discussion at 10 months with a supervisor's report, and a final supervisor employment end of placement declaration at the end of the 12 months. If all of this goes well, you are then recommended to the medical board for specialist recognition and offered fellowship of the relevant college. If you've been granted partial comparability, you will most likely have to be peer reviewed for 2 years, and you'll generally be required to do workplace-based assessments similar to substantial comparability. But you will also have to sit for examinations, with the one notable exception of the College of Physicians, which doesn't seem to require partially comparable candidates to sit exams. These exams are generally the same or similar to the exit examination requirements for advanced trainees of the program that you have been granted approval for. If you're having trouble completing any of the requirements on time, don't fret. The medical board and colleges recognise that situations do change and circumstances do arise. If you're having trouble completing your requirements within the specified time period, which is usually either 12 months for substantially comparable candidates and 24 months for partially comparable candidates, you can apply for an extension of your supervision period. For substantial comparability, you can generally gain up to 12 months for an extension. For partial comparability, up to an extra 24 months. In terms of what to do if you do run out of time, if you run out of your extension time, then the situation does get a bit more serious here. This is where the possibility of the college not recommending you can become a possibility. There may still be some options to apply for special circumstances or appeal to gain some more time to complete your requirements. So you should check with the college what your options are. If all of your avenues have run out, the college will most likely not recommend you for specialist registration. This is serious, as you are now then officially at the end of this process, and it means you have to try via another pathway. It's important to note that the college cannot recommend you for some form of other registration, for example, limited registration as a trainee or general registration. Your registration status officially becomes unregistered in Australia again. There is a slight possibility that if there are some concerns about your ability to practice in certain areas of your specialty, but your skills in others are sound, that you might be offered what's called limited scope of practice to work as a specialist in a smaller field. But this is quite rare and doesn't often happen. So there you have it. That's the final steps of the specialist pathway. And that's the final video in the Specialist Pathway series, a series that has taken me 3 years to make. So thank you for your patience. I will be adding some more videos to this series over time, particularly if there are any important updates, as well as specific videos in relation to various specialties as it might make sense to do so. Remember, you can also gain more information and assistance by enrolling in my Specialist Pathway course, which is free, over on my website, link in the description below. And you can find out about my one-on-one client services, including my VIP packages as well, by going to the description of this video. So please subscribe and turn on notifications, and I will see you in other videos. Bye for now.